Today, we're going to be making some of the most useful tools that you need in your workshop. Every build you've done or are planning to do will probably involve at least one of these tools. And the best bit is, they're all made from scraps that you've got around your workshop right now. I'm going to start the footage right now because the builds are so simple themselves that you don't need me talking you through every stage. You can watch the process as it goes and I'll show you them in action instead when the time's right. You see, this may be the most start making video I've done so far this year, and that doesn't feel good. At the start of this journey, I had no idea what a balancing act this was between YouTuber and woodworker. And I feel like recently I've drifted away from being a woodworker, leaning closer towards being a YouTuber. And though that is technically my job title, being a woodworker is how I started and it's where I find my happiness. And so this video is the start of trying to tip the scales back again. By taking expensive tools and trying to make custom replacements that perform as well, but don't blow the budget. Scrap wood, beginner friendly, fun build, with plenty of mistakes make this a very start making video. And me, a very happy woodworker. If you hadn't guessed, this first one is a very simple bench cookie. It really serves two supporting purposes. Number one, when sanding, and I might have made a slight upgrade for that purpose that I'll show you in a second. And number two is cutting down sheet goods. And for both, there are really only two criteria that should be met. The first one being that it's non-slip and the second that it doesn't mar your work. I've covered these bench cookies with cork, which ticks both boxes. It's nothing special, it's really cheap, but do note it can be a little bit brittle around the edges. But don't worry, as a lot of these tools we're making have some kind of grip element added on, I'll tell you about all the other options that I've tested a little later on. There's quite a few, and some are actually far better than others. While we're on the subject of criteria, another one is that they should all be the same height, and you actually need enough of them so that if you're cutting a large piece of ply down, you can support both sides of the cut so that the blade doesn't get pinched. So, 4 criteria then. Well, not quite. There are other criteria, but they are true for all of the other tools that we're going to make today. Let me explain. Let's take cost first. One thing that we all have in common as woodworkers is that we've all spent money on this hobby. So while cost may not be your number one priority, just know I've saved you £32 if you make this. And later in the video, I'll show you how to save a further £30 by not buying this. And on top of that, another £22 by not having to buy this. But if you do happen to watch this and decide that you do want to buy those tools, go ahead. They do a fantastic job. But let's just ignore money for a moment. Making your own tools offers you the chance to add a level of customization that you just can't buy. Something that fits your grip like a glove, size that suits, you can go fancy or basic, make as many as you need. These things can't be ignored. But in truth, none of them come close to the main reason that I'm making these. And that is the main reason that I'm suggesting that you should make them. There are days that we all have where we head into our workshops and are hit with woodworker's block. We can't seem to get our teeth stuck into the project that we're due to start or the one that we're halfway through. And this can leave you feeling unfulfilled and frustrated. Trust me, I know all too well. I said this before with the French cleat video, these are the days where a little win goes a long way. Or maybe you just need a 30-minute excuse to head into the peace of your sawdust therapy space. There's nothing wrong with that. These are the days when having a quick project that will also benefit your workspace is the double win that you probably need. And that's why I'm making these. I've made 2 of these bench cookies with the dog underneath. Dog biscuits if you like. Because I wanted the extra bit of stability for when I'm sanding. Just to make sure the vibrations and the workpiece don't move all 4 cookies across your workbench. So this way 2 are completely fixed. And now for the criteria of customization. This tool offers you infinite possibilities and all it is a simple push stick. But, and this has become apparent to me over the past few months, not all push sticks are built equal. And every woodworker likes the ones they like. And so I've made as many as I can think of to see if you spot the one that will work for you. Because there's one simple truth that I think we can all agree on. This push stick that comes with your table saw is simply not good enough. We can do so much better. So go and grab your favourite saw. Then go and draw around the handle because I bet that shape suits you more than any shape you can draw freehand. I've actually made 2 of these as I think this shape suits my needs the most, but I want to adapt the rest of the push stick. And in my usual style, I'll probably take it way too far, but really a push stick only needs to cover a certain amount of non-negotiable factors. And these, in no particular order, are: you need to be able to push the wood that you're cutting forwards. You need to hold it against the fence. You need to be able to push it beyond the end of the riving knife. Got to keep your hands suitably far above the blade, and and it needs to contain nothing metal that could damage your blade or fly out from the push stick. Control is the key to confidence. And don't worry, if this one looks way too complicated for your needs, I've also thrown together a few simple ones that I won't show you the build process for, and these might be the perfect fit. And so there you have it. You've got your push stick. And the real beauty of this is that removable sole. Not only can you recut these as much as you need, but if you find that one's a bit too thin and you're ripping a wider stock, get yourself a different shoe. You only need to cut a groove in it that matches the one in the handle, and then you can join the two together with a piece of 1/4 inch ply. Line up the holes, put your bolts back in, and then you've got a new attachment. This one here's got triple the width on it, but you could go further. What about combining a push stick with a push paddle? So you've got all the benefits of the paddle with all of the grip, but you've got the reach and the distance from the blade of a push stick. And I'm going to show you how to make the paddle base in a second. But first, let's just have a quick run through of all the different push sticks that we've made so far. Over to the table saw. First, the benchmark push stick, the one that comes free with your table saw. The material is not very good. There's no grip at the front and it puts zero pressure on the front of the piece you're pushing through the table saw. It's no good. If you want to upgrade it, this is a much better piece of kit. The only thing lacking on this, again, is the pressure on the front of your workpiece, but it can still do a very good job. But not as good as these two. You see, these two are the simplest to make. They are disposable push sticks. These are perfect for keeping your hands a suitable distance above the blade, looking at around 3 inches there. And worth pointing out at this stage, always make sure your blade only has 3 teeth showing above the height of the workpiece you're pushing through it. So these are your quick and easies. But as someone who considers himself very much at the learning stage with a table saw, these do have great push from the back, they have great weight down on the front, great control, you can tip it slightly towards the fence to keep your workpiece wedged against it. However, because your centre of pressure is over the workpiece with the handle on top of it, you do tend to get a lean on over the table towards the end of your cuts. And if you are very careful to stand to one side of your table saw, it can leave you a little bit off balance. I'm sure as an expert that's not a problem, but for people learning that might be. What these have proved though is that if you do put the additional grip on the bottom, you will gain the additional control. So if you're looking for disposable, quick and easy, and you're confident with your table saw, these are very good. Next up, this one. It's probably going to be the most controversial out of the two because it's half push paddle, half push stick. Pros first, and this will be the same for the next one, your hand is absolutely nowhere near the blade. And because the handle comes away from the push stick towards you, when you're pushing the piece of wood through and you get it past the riving knife, your centre of balance is not compromised. You can stand to the side as much as you like, and you're not having to reach over the table in order to finish your cut. Let's talk negatives. This is wide, so you can't cut stock that is thinner than it. But if you're looking for a little bit of confidence and you're working on a smaller, let's say a more square piece, this gives you a lot of control. So it's definitely one I'm going to use, but it's not going to be the most used. Which is the same style, but has the wider piece on it. I believe this is going to be my push stick of choice going forwards. At least until I get some more confidence on the table saw. And the beauty of it is, if I'm ripping down a thinner piece, I can interchange as much as I want. Between all 4 of those, I think I've got the right push stick in there somewhere. But that's the table saw covered. However, there are other power tools within your workshop. Well, let me explain what I've got planned. My push sticks that you see here will only be used on the table saw and only for larger panel cuts or long to medium rip cuts. All other cuts where the piece can sit under the push block, I'm going to use this G-Ripper Pro. And don't get me wrong, the video would have sounded a whole lot more appealing if I could have said at the start, I'm going to save you the £60 that this thing will set you back. But I've come to the realisation that there is nothing I can make that will be at least as good as what this specialises in. And for that reason, I'm going to be keeping this as one of my first string tools to use with the table saw. But what you're watching me build now is an accessory that will cover all of the other power tools where keeping your hands as far away as possible from spinning cutters is a priority. Or more so where control will increase your safety. Because like so many of you, I started with a cheap set of these push blocks, and they are very quick to lose their grip, but that is not the biggest risk. They are overall too small and made from an incredibly brittle plastic. I don't fancy testing these up against a router bit or a planer blade anytime soon. And that's why I'm making a custom push block, but not for the table saw. I'm not afraid to tell you that even 18 months down the road since making my router table, I still maintain a very healthy respect for it. It's an amazing addition to the workshop. It opens up jobs that would be next to impossible without it, but it can bite. And just because the bits don't look as scary as the table saw blade, don't let that fool you. And so not only am I going to make a push block that will give me a raised hand position and a superior grip through what I'm using on the base, but I'm also going to make a second block. And this one's interesting. This one will replace your mitre gauge on the router table, and it is the simplest of all in design. It'll not only increase your accuracy, but also reduce tear out and keep your fingers safe. And it is as simple as it gets, I promise. I won't even need to show you the step-by-step build, just the block. But we'll swing back around to that, because first we need to finish this push block. Now a quick reminder of the criteria of this one first. No screws or nails, just the dado fixing, a nice feeling handle, fully customised, a removable and adjustable heel to push the work through, no matter the thickness, and little to no cost or skill required. A scrap wood start make and build. And don't worry, as I've promised earlier, I will talk you through all the grip materials at the end, because this one is a huge recommendation here. So let's just draw up a really quick conclusion here. This, rubbish. It's an absolute waste of money. So that leaves us with our two comparisons. And I have to be honest with you here, for shape, size and comfort, there's nothing between them. Grip-wise, this is a rudimentary test, but if I push down on both and pull them apart on the same piece of wood, there's no give. There is one feature that I think I might have outdone this G-Ripper on, and that's the little tabs at the back that lock onto the piece of wood and push it along. Now these drop down on a little hinge effect, but they don't stay down. So what you do is you hook it on the back of the wood and you can push it along. What I like about the way this one's designed is because you can drop down the block at the back to whatever height you want and then just lock it into place with a twist, you've got no worry that it's going to flick up on you while you're working. Whereas these, because once they're down, there's nothing locking them down, it's a worry that I have that you'd accidentally lean it on the board itself and then you don't realise you haven't got the support you think you might have. It's a minor detail. Honestly, you could buy one of these and be very happy. I'm just saying there's a chance you can make one that's just about as good and it's going to cost you a lot less. Okay, I promised you that this would be just about as simple as it gets, and it's for your router table. All you need is a square of ply with one 90-degree corner. This is going to be your leading corner that attaches to your fence and your piece of work. If you happen to have all four perfectly square, that's just going to add to the versatility of this. And then you just need two pieces of 3/4 inch ply with a dado to hold them together, so you don't need screws. That is going to sit within the square. The square has to be the widest point on all four corners if you are going to use all four. And in the top I've put two dados, one on each side for grip. What we're going to do is attach these two together. So if you want to use the blue tape and CA glue trick, go ahead. I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape because one of the benefits of this is that only the base gets spoiled. The top, you take off and put on a new base. And that's our push block made. Because the way this works, while the top edge here rides along the fence, your workpiece is up against the other edge, and as long as you've cut your base right, this is going to keep everything nice and square when you're cutting things like dados. And because the piece of wood that you're putting the dado on is being followed by this base, the base is going to take the tear out, not the piece of wood you're working on. So it solves two issues. But not only that, the one thing you'll find with a mitre gauge on a router table is it's really hard to stop that piece moving around as you cut the dado. With this will lock it down perfectly square. That's about as simple as it gets, and I guarantee that will be one of the most useful push accessories that you have if you've got a router table. Remember these detailed, albeit random pictures for a minute. We're going to bounce back to them. I think I need to give you a little background to why I've included this set of tools, and yes, there's going to be more than one. In truth, the first couple are designed to combat just one single issue that I have with dog holes, and that is that the dog is only one size. So in some circumstances, you can end up actually having to bridge quite a gap with whatever you're clamping the piece with. Now I know that doesn't sound all that bad, but really, why can't we make a bench dog that is just more versatile? So that is going to be the aim of the first part of this section. You see, MFT, or multifunction tables, have been popping up all over the place recently. Either bought to ensure total accuracy where the holes are perfectly spaced out using a CNC, or made from a template, giving them what I assume is the second most accurate grid, or, sadly like mine, Drilled as close as possible, but in no way reliably accurate. And though part of me wishes that I'd done it better and made my holes a little closer, you have what you have, and it's performed okay so far. But as all you really need to make a bench dog is just some dowel, the same dimensions as the holes you've cut, and a bit of scrap hardwood, I've decided to have a little bit of fun. Now, if you haven't already figured it out, I'm planning a dog that is rectangular in shape, where the four sides are all at different distances from the edge of the dowel. See, that way, instead of screwing out the clamp you're using another 10mm, you can simply twist the dog so that the gap is instantly filled. The plan is to do a thin one, which is aimed as a planeable stop if you like, so it sits below the piece you're clamping, and one that is chunkier for, well, chunkier clamping. You'll notice that I'm putting a slight underbevel on the side so that the clamped piece is inclined to hunker down onto the table rather than be raised up when you put it under pressure. And I know I've said this too many times to count so far, but like all the builds so far, there's no metal fixings in these, so a slip with a hand plane will not result in an hour of sharpening. And with the dogs being made from hardwood, if they're too tall, you can simply plane them down. It isn't perfect. It's pretty good, but I tell you what would make it perfect if you had two of these, and one of them was of larger dimensions. So then you could bridge any gap. Back to the drawing. Now this was an idea that I had that was a battle between what I thought was possible and what maths and physics say might not be. Those original rectangular dogs offer 4 adjustments, and I thought that could be surpassed in practicality by a hexagon, which I believe would be 6 sides, all getting progressively further away from the dowel, leading to an almost unmatched flexibility. Unless somebody figures a way of doing it with an octagon. But I'm not 100% sure that that's going to work, so let's give these a quick test. I have no doubt that the shortest and the longest will work perfectly, because when clamped, the dowel sits directly in the middle of the face. It's the ones on the side that I'm a little bit dubious about, because I wonder if it will just all get a bit higgledy. So let's prove a point. Let's do the shortest face first. Rock solid. If we bring the clamp out in increments, we should be able to just twist this and it will work. This is the biggest, most dubious one, I think, in my eyes, the second denomination. Wow. Yeah, I can't pull the board up. I want to show you this close up, and I want to show you the reason that I think it's a bit dodgy, because you see the face that's attached to the wood here, the center line is drawn across here, which is well away from where the dowel goes. You know what, let's get a hammer. Let's try with a hammer. I'm confident I could dislodge it if I really gave it a whack, but to be honest, how much pressure do you need? Wow. The last dog I want to make is one that I've needed to make for a long time. And after dinging my hand plane one too many times on my metal dogs, I've decided to make a wooden planing stop. But remember when I said that my holes are not laid out in an accurate fashion? Well, this is an issue. And the only way to combat it is to include a little bit of versatility. So here are the criteria. Again, no metal included, hardwood top, one fixed dowel and one that can be moved a few millimeters each way, so that any pair of adjacent holes can accommodate the planing stop. And the hardwood needs to be fairly thin so that I can plane down something around 7mm and it sits beneath it. That doesn't sound like too much to ask. You did see my issue with the planing stop being that it had metal pegs. Had to replace them, so the locked one is now a wooden dowel. You can pop it in, and then I've made this. What it does is it sits inside the groove and it can move sideways. So if you're a few millimeters off with your holes, that doesn't matter. So we can now set it up on any pair of adjacent holes. Because I may not have made it perfect, but at least I got fairly close to a grid. Let's give it a quick test. As we wrap up this video, I think we've got to the stage where I can actually save you the most time in this entire process, and that is the research phase. Because you can make anything you've seen in the video and just make it out of scrap wood, and you don't need to put any of the grippy stuff on the bottom. Most of them will do a job. But if you add the grip on, then they're suddenly doing a very good job. So let's just quickly talk about this. This is a cheap baking sheet of silicone. As far as I can tell, nothing easy is going to stick this to your workpiece. And that is a shame, because it is the grippiest out of everything. I tried 5-minute epoxy. I obviously tried wood glue, I tried contact adhesive, I tried spray-on contact adhesive. I tried a PVA glue that was the same one that I used on the roof for the rubber that I stuck down up there, and I tried CA glue, and I tried goop. None of them work on silicone. Probably one of the cheapest ways to go is sandpaper. Yes, it works, but I worry that that's going to mar your work. And that leaves us with the options that actually work pretty well. You've got cork, you've got a sticky backed foam, which is used to stop furniture slipping, things like that. You've got rubber that's already got an adhesive attached to it, and that's quite heavy duty. And then you've got the nitrile cork, which is basically cork mixed with nitrile rubber. These will all do a job for you, so if you've got them lying around, that's great. For cork, all you need is wood glue, and that's a big benefit. For everything else, take away your fancy glues. Just get some spray-on contact adhesive. That, from the local hobby shop, stuck the nitrile on perfectly. And during the testing process, I actually found a late addition, which is the rubber draw liner that I use for sanding on top of. So to test these before starting the process, I just made tiny bench cookies, each one with a different grip on it. First of all, rubber with the adhesive already on it doesn't mar your work, sticks perfectly, but the adhesive never goes off. Not the stuff I got anyway. If you get just a sheet of nitrile with normal contact adhesive, that is a good option. Cork we've talked about. I worry how it functions over time and the edges are brittle. But for ease of use, because you can put it on with wood glue, cork is a very good way to go. The rubber mesh that I use for holding pieces while I sand them is good, and you just use it with spray on contact adhesive, but it frays around the edges, and I think over time, it's not going to be all that robust. The adhesive-based foam pads. Now this foam felt very familiar, and I didn't know where I'd actually felt it before in this video, until I did a bit of B-roll with this. This is the cheap foam pad. My complaint with that is that the foam loses its stick over time and quickly. So to be fair, the sticky back foam is very easy to apply, very cost effective. You don't need any glue with it, but I don't think that it's going to hold up over time. And that leaves us with the nitrile cork. This is easy to attach, spray contact adhesive again. It's sturdy around the edges because of the rubber that's penetrated through it. It is grippy. It's not that expensive. You buy a gasket sheet. I'll put the link in the description for all of these so you can test them out. And so that is what I recommend to add grip to anything. Put it on the inside drawers of your vise and then thank me later. Like anything we do in our workshops, nothing is going to come out perfectly, but you're going to have some fun building it along the way, and you can add to it, adapt it for the next time. I stand by what I say. If you ever walk down to your workshop and you don't know exactly what you want to make on that day, but you're desperate to do something, just grab some scraps, throw them together and make something useful for your workshop. People everywhere are talking about mental health at the moment, and that is brilliant. And I make no secret about the fact that this right here in this workshop is my therapy. There's two questions that come up a lot in the comments of my videos. One, and this is mainly from people who watch a lot of the French cleat videos and the workshop storage, etc. They say, well, when do you actually get time to make anything in your workshop? I'm making stuff every day. It doesn't have to be things to sell. It doesn't have to be furniture, big items. Make something that makes you happy. And the second one is, why do you make videos for YouTube? See, for me, that is the easiest one to answer. I make them because I imagine that there's going to be people watching them who will make some of the things they've seen in that video, and it will genuinely help them along on their journey. Or if nothing else, they'll have a bit of fun while making it. If you've enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. If you've got ideas or improvements for me, pop it down there as well. If you like builds that help out in the workshop, that's a really good video. If you're new to the channel and you're just exploring what videos we've got, take a look at that one. I thank you so much for your time. I'll see you over there.